Good evening, everyone. The hour being after 6:45, I'd like to call the November 16th, 2023 school committee meeting to order. A couple of our members are under the weather this evening, so we wish them a speedy recovery, but in the meantime, we'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first order of business is a celebration of most of the people in the room this evening. We have the Walpole High School Boys and Girls Cross Country Team.
Yes.
Dr. Goff?
Yes, so present tonight are both the coaches and the athletes of the Walpole Boys and Girls Cross Country programs. This past Saturday at the Rentham Developmental Center, the Walpole Boys Cross Country won the Division IIA championship. And this divisional championship is their 8th one overall and their 3rd championship in the last decade. Meanwhile, the Walpole Girls Cross Country placed 3rd overall in the Division IIA and had 3 individuals place in the top 15. Placing 3rd as a team, the girls cross country will also advance to the state meet as a team for the 6th time in the last 7 years. So this Saturday, both Walpole teams are going to compete in the All-State Championship at Fort Devens. And we are very proud of these individuals and dedication for the hard work that they put forth into their sport. So in addition to wishing them good luck this Saturday, we ask them here tonight to share their experience as members of the Walpole Cross Country program.
Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. So welcome, everyone. It looks like you have a few spokespeople for your group. So, yeah, we love having kids here, and welcome. So, whoever wants to start, go right ahead.
Yeah, I wrote a little something. So
Okay?
I'll start reading it. Do you want to read it with me? Tell me. Okay. Hi, I'm Dylan Benz. I'm the captain of the boys cross country team. This season was the first time we won divisional since 2019, I believe. So this year we were part of the Division IIA due to our school size dropping below, I think, 1,000 students. So we had to move down divisions. But at the divisional meet last Saturday on November 11th, we came in first place with 71 points, beating Plymouth South, who was second place with 100 points. So 29-point lead over the second place team. For our medalers, coming in 5th place, Luke Zaharik over there. He medaled with a time of 16:27 in the 5K. Sean Kerrin, a D1 commit at UMass Lowell, also medaled and came in 7th place with a time of 16:33. Our 3rd medaler, Declan Cunningham, came in 15th place with a time of 16:52. This season, we also won the Herget Championship title for the first time since 2014. And next up, we have the D2 All-State Championship on this coming Saturday. I'm so proud of what this team has accomplished this season, and I'm so excited to see what they do this weekend. Thank you very much for having us.
Very good.
Nice job.
So,
Yeah.
hello, I'm Tommy Capozzi. I'm one of the other captains. And I just want to talk a little bit about, like, sort of the atmosphere this year. For me, it was a lot different, you know, being a leader on the team. Oh, new position. All right, here we go. But, you know, at practice, we did a lot of work with band stretches, which are good for keeping your hips good. And we focused a lot this season on pack running, which basically means getting the number 1 guy and say our like number 5 guy as close to each other as possible in the race. So last Saturday, there was, I believe, a 36-second gap, which is pretty quick between the 1 and the 5, I believe. So a lot of that is thanks to our wonderful coaching staff. One of our coaches here, Coach Ganshert, great guy. You know, there's also Tim Giblin, who is one of the social studies coaches, social studies teachers at the high school, and Coach Pat Ryan, who is a science teacher, and Chris Tringali, who is also another science teacher at the high school. So yeah, I mean, we had This year, we dropped down a division because we are a bit of a smaller school. But we had a shot, and we took it, and here we are. So, yeah, I'm so proud of this team, and it was really, really an awesome season. That's all I got.
Nice job.
Definitely
Girls.
awesome.
The girls lead.
I want to do this.
Hi. Hi, I'm Elsa Vanderlinden.
I'm Caroline White.
I'm Jenna Wildman.
We're the captains of the girls' cross-country team at Walpole High. This Saturday, me and Caroline competed at the divisional championships. It's the most important meet of our season, along with 5 other runners from our team: Laura Costa, Bridget Tierney, Isla Zolo, Veronica Consoli, and Lily McManus.
We had 3 individual medalists. Our top runner, sophomore Isla Zolo, won 2nd place in the race with a personal best of 18:52. Senior Caroline White won 5th with 19:44. And Bridget Tierney, another sophomore, won 12th place with 20 minutes and 33 seconds. And last week, Caroline actually committed to running D1 track and cross country at Merrimack.
As a team, we placed 3rd overall at the meet, which allows us to compete at all states this Saturday. We are excited to wrap up our season with an amazing effort from all our runners.
Cross country means a lot to all of us. Over the last 4 years, we've been given this opportunity to bond with other grades, experience leading younger girls, and participate in an incredibly rewarding sport. Cross country has truly created a family where everyone feels valued and included.
We hope the cross-country and track programs in the high school and middle school continue to thrive because we all have gotten so much out of it. Thank you for recognizing us today.
Nice job. Well, sometimes we have some questions or just want to hear from you guys. So I'll open it up to the committee and see what we've got. Anybody have questions or thoughts they want to share? Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you,
Buckley.
Madam Chair. It's wonderful to have you here. Obviously, not the school committee expert on running, but it's, although I did run down the hallway just now. We join in, the pride of your folks and your friends. It's great to have you here, and I know, obviously, being student athletes, you're required to also conform to a level of academic rigor. And as I look out here with a lot of you, you guys are familiar faces, a lot of you, showing that you're not only great athletes, but a great multidiscipline students and well-rounded. So we're always happy for you to bring something like that in to stick on our table for the evening, and we hope a few of your colleagues will be here in the coming weeks as well. But I just want to congratulate you. It's great. You sort of run, pun intended, under the radar as a program, but it's great to see you, especially competing in the storied Herget division and against sort of your own personal best, which it's a great thing for your sport. So we congratulate you for your excellence, and hope especially some of you underclassmen to come back here about this time next year as well. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes, Dr. Goff.
Yeah, it's awesome to watch you guys. It is, if you haven't seen cross-country, it's really something not to miss. It is interesting to watch you kind of like pop out, pop back in, then you come out, come around, but when you're coming around that track into the finish line, and I really commend you just the way that you all interact with, your opposing teams at the end, and, when you're hanging around and getting ready to run. But nice job. And you're at 2:00, right? Are you 2:00 on Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Boys are 2:00,
Girls are 2:45.
All right. Good luck.
Yes. Thank
So
you so
I have a
much.
couple of thoughts. I would just like to hear a little bit from you guys about how do you feel the athletic programs that you've decided to join have benefited you as people and students? And how do you feel cross-country might be either different or better for you as an activity?
I think academically, being on the cross-country team, honestly, like everyone on the team is in very good academic standing, and I think being surrounded by those people is really helpful within the classroom because you're with them so much. So everyone's like just being around other people that I know that are in good academic standing is helping in the classroom as well. honestly.
I think as an activity, it really like shaped my high school career. Like I did all 4 years, and then it was like it's instant friends. Obviously, when you're like a nervous freshman, and then all throughout the years, like you're spending so much time with these people. Obviously, like practice every day, and we do a lot of team bonding, especially in cross country. That I've heard like some other teams, like they're so big, you know, like the field hockey's very large, but then we have like 17 girls, so we can like go out to breakfast, and it's like very close knit, which I really love.
Mm-hmm.
I think another good thing about cross country is that it's like super inclusive because we don't do cuts, obviously. So I feel like anybody who wants to just do a sport in high school can join cross country, and I feel like it's a very safe space, and like you'll be accepted, and there's always a spot for you on the team.
Mm-hmm.
It is a hard sport. I will say that. When I was a freshman, we started off in this sort of like weird hybrid version of cross country because of the cohorts at school, and it was strange, you know. So for me, it took a while to adjust to that sort of team atmosphere, but once we did, it felt not so much like a team, but like a community and like a family, which was really, for me, was really awesome. And, you know, we also go to this camp in the summer, Camp Winnadu. It's over in Pittsfield, very beautiful place. And there's really just a lot of like team bonding, and yeah, so great sport.
Hope that answered your question.
Do you have anything else you want to add? I think you represent us so well. I think, you know, it is a combination, as Mr. Buckley said, of just character and academics and athletics coming together. So we're very, very, very proud of you. And yeah, we're glad to see you here this evening. Good luck for the rest of the season. And for those of you that are moving on next year, stay in touch, because you're an important part of our community. So thanks for being here. Oh, good idea.
Thank you so much.
Can we get a picture of you up here, like facing it?
Oh, yeah.
You want them to come this
Yeah,
way?
they can go
If
in
you
front
guys
of
come in
us.
here,
They can block
Mrs.
us.
Mortale can be where you are and take a group picture.
Right
Come back
there,
this way,
right
and you
in
guys will
front.
face that way.
You'll face that way. It's okay if you block us. Yeah, please.
Just trying to make it tradition. Love for cross country. I'm like, now I want my kid to do cross country. Forget soccer. You're not doing soccer. Seriously, like so impressive. Like so.
I saw her.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
a couple
right, too,
days
yeah. Funny, my Molly and her friend Holly. All the way to high school. Everybody was a goalie. She was defense, and they were like this.
Thank you.
They don't see that much.
You guys, I have one more request. Favor's about to give her report for Walpole Heights, so just stay until then. You're welcome if you need to leave after that, but stay for her report, okay? Thank you. So we'll give you the floor, Favor, to give the Walpole High report from the students. Thank you.
Good evening. It's good to be back here today. As you said, my name is Favor, and I'll be delivering the Walpole High School student report. Students have successfully ended term 1, and even though it's been a challenging term, getting back into the school system, hopes are getting higher as we're getting closer to Thanksgiving break. And additionally, there is also a lot to look forward to. Student Council is hosting a Spirit Week next week with the annual pep rally that will be held on the half day on Wednesday. On that same Wednesday, there will also be the Powder Puff for junior and senior girls. And additionally, as we've seen by the cross-country team, a lot of fall sports are doing well. And as the season is winding down, many have had a good season. Both boys and girls varsity soccer worked hard in the playoff season, and the football team also advanced to the Final Four team standing. Field hockey, along with a lot of other sports, has seen great success this season, and we're looking forward to the upcoming winter season for sports. Clubs also continue to run smoothly as more events are taking place. The speech and debate team competed in Natick last weekend, and many team members performed well in final rounds. The Music Honors Society Tri-M is making preparations for their winter coffee house, which will be held on Friday, December 15th. The UNICEF Club is in the middle of their World Children's Day fundraiser, where they have been selling blue ribbons during lunchtimes, with the proceeds heading towards UNICEF. And the Spanish, French, and PM clubs are planning a annual trip to Snowport, which will be on Friday, December 8th. Overall, the school year has been moving smoothly, and it's been an eventful year so far, and great things will definitely be on the horizon. That's it for my report, and thank you for having me here today.
Nice job, Favor. Are there any questions for her or any more for the cross-country team who may have other things to fit into their evening tonight?
Thank you.
If not, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay, but don't feel like you need to, Favor.
Thank you.
Okay. Our
You guys
next.
are off the hook
You guys
now.
Thanks for
Got
being
50
here.
MCAS slides though, if you want to. Not 50, right? 50 slides.
Nice job, you guys.
I'm prepared and concise.
I know, that's why we love you.
Way to clear a room, huh? Okay, so our next item is an out-of-state field trip request. Dr. Goff?
So present tonight is Val Lucas to request the out-of-state field trip for grade 8 French students from both Byrd and Johnson Middle Schools to take the trip to Quebec City, in Canada, from February 8th through February 10th, 2024.
So very excited to be here. I haven't been here in a while, but this is, I think, 25th or 29th, something like time that we are running the Quebec trip. It hasn't been running since 2020. It was the last time that we went. But we are trying to get it back together. It is, so like Mrs. Goff said, Dr. Goff said, February 8th to the 10th, we go on a Thursday, Friday, and we return on a Saturday. This is for the 8th grade French students that are at Byrd Middle School and Johnson Middle School. We would go on a motor coach bus, and we go and we speak French into Quebec, ordering our food or ordering purchasing some items in there, and we visit some museums. We go to the Ice Hotel, that is one of the biggest ice hotels where it's just amazing how they built this. And then we have a few other activities, and the kids are very, very excited to go and do that. It really motivates them in the French class, which we need in 8th grade. So, yep, that's that. So the price this year is a little high. It's like $886 to $1,011, just a little over $1,000. We will be doing some fundraiser. We have a cookie dough fundraiser with Otis Spunkmeyer. I can never say that word. Otis Spunkmeyer. Anybody knows this? Yeah. Okay. So that's the cookie dough. It's a new thing. We're not doing the candy, Yankee candles this year. So that would be going on. We also have scholarship money. At least I speak for Byrd. We have some scholarship money at Byrd that we will also be making available for our students who need financial assistance. So yeah, we have a nurse lined up. We have at least one in the making, administrator. And so she has accepted to go into the trip if it is approved. So we would have that, and then we would have myself, and then accordingly, if we have more students, then we can have, you know, up to 2 more people. So our max is 50 kids, and I will not be going or making the trip available if we have less than 35 kids. Because it just makes it too expensive for the students, and it doesn't promote unity in the classes, in the French classes, if we have half of the class who's not going. So that's generally what we do.
Okay, that gives us a pretty good idea. Are there questions for Ms. Lucas? I know that you're familiar with Bird because that's where you work. I know for sure that Johnson would also provide
Yes, I'm not sure
scholarship
how they work.
assistance.
I know they have like a fund, a rainy fund
Yes,
for
but I know
scholarships,
that,
but,
like, you know, the schools would be balanced
Yeah.
in that regard, so. And thank you for even being willing to take this on, because it's on your free time as well. And the planning is an important piece of it.
It's so fun, and then there was some kids over there that I went to Quebec with, and I was like, ooh, it's fun, it's fun. Yeah, it is always fun to see the kids in a different setting. They are just so different kids when they are really trying, and I know they're shy in the classroom, and they're sometimes even shyer, but, you know, sometimes they just take the leap, and it's really nice to see. And we go in small enough groups that there's a real camaraderie between all the students and us, and it makes for a really good atmosphere also within the school before we go and after we go. So, yeah. I've been going for, well, since 2011, and we just took a little break for 21, 22, and 23 for 3 years, yeah. But,
Great.
yeah.
Any other, Mr. Breen?
A motion to approve the field trip.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Breen, a second by Mr. Buckley. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained? 500, you're on your way.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Excited, thank you.
Enjoy.
I will
Take
definitely let
pictures.
you know how it goes. I usually come back, right,
Yeah.
with some students with some experiences, but thank you very much for your time and your concerns.
Thank you too, Val. Good to see you. Okay, that gets us to our next item, which is the MCAS presentation. Dr. Hahn.
I noticed we didn't have the students stay for this.
Well, I was gonna make that request,
Encourage
but,
Well, thank you, as always, for providing me the opportunity to present this evening on our district-wide MCAS results. I do want to point out that at this point, all students and caregivers should have received their individual results in the mail. If there are any questions about those results, I encourage you to contact your individual building principal to set up a meeting to discuss further. Tonight is really an opportunity for us to review our summative district-wide data and to share how we use this data to inform our instructional practice as a district. The MCAS data files I review are quite large, and I want to thank all the curriculum leaders and members of the team who support me in this work. MCAS is just one way we measure student growth, but it is important information that we take seriously to lead the district in our continued work to improve curriculum and instruction. To give you an idea, in short, approximately 2,150 students take over 9,118 tests in approximately five different subject areas. These students do not all share the same educational journeys, backgrounds, goals, or walks of life, but we look closely at our data to find trends and opportunities to grow and continue to build as a district. This evening, you'll receive a pretty general overview, but please know that these results can impact curriculum decisions, professional development, and pedagogy, how teachers are pacing their curriculum maps, and of course, our intervention for support. Some of these things that I mentioned here, I will discuss in more detail towards the end of my presentation. So let's dive in. The slide available here is quotes from Commissioner Riley and Massachusetts Educational Secretary Tutwiler, both saying ultimately the same thing, and that is that across the state and nationally, it looks, and we're hopeful that the slide that was a result of the pandemic has stopped, and recovery has started and is along the way. This next slide indicates that Walpole's story is very similar. We are in a position, besides for grade 10 ELA, where after the slide from 2019 to 2021, we have seen a slow increase from 2022 to 2023. And just to remind people of this slide, in case there's any questions, in 2019 was the last time before the pandemic students take MCAS. In 2021, students did take MCAS, but it was a different version. It was a single test for each subject test. So last year, 2022, was the first year that students took what we would consider the more traditional assessments for each of the subject area, and that would be true for 2023 as well. As I mentioned, I work with an entire team of curriculum leaders and individual teachers who participate in the work to drill down the data. In some ways, the MCAS analysis has improved greatly because the state has done so much work to get us results earlier so that we can make changes to improve student intervention and the work that we do as a district. But in other ways, the work has become a bit more sophisticated because Walpole has worked so hard to improve our benchmark assessments so that MCAS is not just a single data point we do to measure our learning. So a lot of the work we do is not only drilling down on the data of MCAS, but comparing that data to some of the benchmark assessments that we've increased and improved over the last 3 to 4 years. As I've done in the past, I'll focus my presentation on data on 3 primary content areas. Of course, that's ELA, math, and science, or STE. And most scores will be organized in 2 buckets, grades 3 to 8, and then grades 10, or in the case of science, grade 9. There are some slides for you to view that will allow you to see more of a grade level breakdown, but the next handful of slides that you'll see are primarily organized in the fashion of 3 to 8 and 10th grade. So as you can see in our ELA MCAS, it is true to what Commissioner Riley and Tal say. You see an improvement compared to the state. We have typically fared better in the state in terms of achievement scores, and we continue to show growth. I did mention in grade 10 for ELA, we actually had an exceptional year in 2021, so I think some of this being at 68 and 67% is not as much of a concern for decreasing as much as it's probably going back to the mean. You now can see in more detail, just to remind everyone, the E in this slide stands for exceeding expectation, the M is meeting expectation, PM is partially meeting expectation, and NM is not meeting expectations. So I also provide an opportunity for you to see where we stand percentiles for the breakdown of our students. Also, a very important data point that we look at is included in this slide, and that is the SGP, or the student growth percentile. And a reminder for questions about that is that compares students in groups similar to theirs from one year to the next. So the state suggests that anywhere between 45 to about 55% would be considered a good SGP. And obviously, we're aiming for a higher growth percentile beyond 55%, which we do achieve in some areas. You'll see in 10th grade ELA, as I mentioned, there was a 1% drop in our students meeting and exceeding expectations. But one of the other areas that we are looking for, and I'll talk about this again in a little bit when we review our math scores, is that we saw an increase, and we look for an increase in students exceeding expectations. So while our combined numbers were not as strong, we did move a larger percentile from students exceeding expectations from 2022 at 5% to 19% at 2023. All right, now getting into our math scores. Again, this is just an overview as compared to the state. But you will notice, and this will be a point that I'll make several times, we did make significant gains this year in our high school math MCAS scores. An 8% jump from 65% in 2022 to 73% in 2023 we would consider significant, and hopefully a response that will remain consistent as we make adjustments in our math curriculum, our pacing, and the way we instruct. And now a further dive into grades 3 to 8. I will mention, because it was brought up at several curriculum presentations last year, we did make a change in grades 6 to 8 to our pacing of our above level and on-level math courses. And we were hoping this would be represented in students exceeding expectations for their scores. And we did see a bump. This does represent, like I said, grades 3 to 8, but we did see a bump in grades 6 to 8 in students exceeding expectations, which is something that we were pleased about for our scores. And then finally, as I mentioned, our 10th grade scores had significant gain, and you'll also see that represented if I draw your eye back down to the student growth percentile, going from a 41 to 46 to 56, shows not only did we increase our achievement, but we also accelerated at a higher rate to students similar to us across the state. And as much as we celebrate the things that we do well, we pay very close attention to things that we did not have as great a success. And while we had increases in grades 5 and significant increases in our high school physics 9th grade MCAS, which I'll show in more detail in a minute, you will notice a 12% decrease in our 8th grade. I did mention a little while ago, if you heard, that we accelerated some of our math curriculum last year for the first time ever in a pacing guide and a pacing strategy that we haven't done. And in doing so, to meet that pacing, we did switch for the first time ever science MCAS to be given before math MCAS. And there were 2 standards that were taught to our students in 8th grade after the 8th grade MCAS was given. So while I'm hoping that percentage is an anomaly, I do think that one of the changes we made did have a significant impact, specifically with the implementation of 2 standards. So that's something that we are getting way ahead of this year in terms of our planning and our pacing, not just for math, but also for science. And I'll talk not just simply about pacing and time of year, but I'll talk at the end about some changes we're also making in science to adjust to that decrease in our scores. Again, similar, this is the more detailed for our 5th and 8th grade. And you will not see a student growth percentile, because student growth percentile is only for scores that are given year after year, 3rd to 4th, 4th to 5th, and so on and so forth. And because science, or STE, is not given a year after year, it's given in grade 5, and in grade 8, they do not carry a student growth percentile, and they also do not for grade 9 as well. And one thing to note, in our science technology, even though we were discouraged by our drop in 8th grade, one area that we've been paying very close attention to is the change in our instruction and curriculum, because 5th and 8th grade STE is not just assessing science, it's also assessing technology and engineering standards. And that's an area we've been paying a lot of attention to with the increase at the elementary level and some change at the middle school level. And we were pleased it's not represented in these overarching scores, that there was an increase in the T and E standards of those assessments. And finally, to round out science, here's our physics, intro to physics scores. A reminder, especially those that are used to, or might remember that in the past, our students typically took biology in 10th grade. We made the change for our students to take physics in 9th grade when we made the changes to the curriculum for all 9th grade students to take physics. And we were really pleased with the results and the significant increase from last year. As I've mentioned in the past, we do not just look at our overarching scores, we also dive deeper into our subgroups. Subgroups can include high-need students, low-income students, students with disability, English language learners, breakout students by gender and by race or ethnicity. At times, as I go through these slides, you might see empty boxes, and that is because they will leave, if there's not enough representation of one of these subgroups, they will leave that percentage blank. So there's a lot of information that I will not go through piece by piece. But one thing I will tell you in our subgroup analysis is there's areas where we need to provide more support to our students, that we need to pay closer attention to the work that we're doing in intervention for our high-need students. But one detail that I'll tell you that we were pleased about is that both in grades 3 to 8 and in our high school subgroups, there were only 2 SGP measures where we actually decreased for our subgroups compared to the year before. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, because one of the areas was ELA, specifically with students with disabilities. But besides for that, there were not many instances where we did not actually improve on our SGP and our growth, which is a really important measure for us as a district as part of our analysis. The next two slides allow us to dive deeper into grade level comparisons. Again, there's a lot on these slides, so I suggest a really simplified way to look at it is that green is good and red is bad. Now, there are some pros and cons to comparing year after year in the same grade level. The pros, we can isolate areas of concern or growth, for instance, what happened in 8th grade science or what you'll see here in our 6th grade math scores. But the downside is that you're not comparing the same group of students, which can make your analysis a little bit more difficult, and that's something that we try to consider. Before I move on to the next part of our presentation, I also want to be transparent that typically in presentations in the past, I would include district comparisons to districts that are similar to us, as we oftentimes refer to as DART districts. We did not intend to leave this data out this year. It was not published when we designed and created this presentation, and it actually was just published a few days ago. So I would be happy to include that information for the school committee. It was omitted because it wasn't ready by the time we were putting it in, which was surprising because the state's done a really exceptional job of getting data out. I just think their DART data was recalibrated this year for districts, and so it took them a little while to do that comparable data out. All right, so one new aspect of my presentation today will be to spend a few minutes discussing the Massachusetts accountability system and Walpole's results. I have not shared accountability data in the past because it was not calculated or really offered after COVID. So this is the first year since 2019 that DESE has made this information available. I want to be honest, the formula for accountability data can be incredibly confusing. I have spent countless hours at professional development sessions and meetings with other assistant superintendents to understand it, and I still have to slow down and reread it and look at it again to fully understand it. But the best general description I can give is that, in short, the accountability system is a way to measure how well schools are doing. It's the way DESE measures how well schools are doing. It looks at things like MCAS scores, access scores, student growth, graduation rates, and other factors to figure out how we're helping our students learn and succeed. When schools don't perform well, the state uses the system to provide more support. None of Walpole schools qualify for that additional support, which is good news because we're either meeting or making substantial progress towards our target, which is obviously what we want and what we want to be able to do. So those two slides that I've just shown give a general description of the Massachusetts accountability system formula. Just to draw your eye to this slide so everyone can see is that the left part, indicators for non-high school grades, primarily focus on achievement for ELA math and science and growth for ELA and math, and then progress for our English language learners and chronic absenteeism rate. You'll see the right side, which is high school, includes graduation rate, annual dropout rate, also includes chronic absenteeism, and then advanced coursework completion rate. Then the next side here shows you how did we do in terms of school accountability percentile by district and by schools. And while we want the highest percentiles possible, please know these are not grades. They aren't your percentile grades. They're actually more of your percentile growth towards the target DESE has set for you, and this is where the formula can get a bit tricky. So if you look at Walpole High School, you see this school accountability percentile of 67. But actually, you should know that Walpole High School hit 93% of its target and was recognized as a school of recognition by DESE for achieving that score. So it's deceiving. You see 67, it might equate to a grade for you, but we were actually recognized by DESE. And I do want to point out that Old Post Road was also a school of recognition by DESE for hitting targets. Our other schools did well. They made substantial progress. The only school that was moderate growth towards the progress was Johnson Middle School. So you can see that by those scores. And then I debated including the slide because it can be really confusing, but I did want to show you, this is the weighted formula that DESE uses to calculate it, so that we were being as transparent as possible. And again, this is all available online, but some things, won't come as a surprise. So the achievement line was going to focus more on your MCAS scores. You'll see, especially in non-high school, our science achievement, we received 0 out of 4 points because we know we had a significant reduction in that area, so we did not hit the targets that we wanted to. So many of these numbers are dictated by the target that DESE has set for you. I would, if the committee is interested, would take questions and do my best to answer, but also come back with substantive answers that help people understand accountability. I will tell you that Walpole tends to do well. We would be considered a school that's making strong progress. And certainly there are areas, I want to be very clear, that we can improve and will improve on, but it's not an area we get a lot of support from the state, because our progress tends to be one that they would consider effective. So before I move on to our big takeaways and what things we're doing as a district, I did just want to make a note about looking forward with MCAS, because there are some substantial changes that could be on the horizon. So I wanted to make sure school committee was kept and that the community was kept updated about those changes. There is a strong consideration for competency determinations, and that's what you need in order to graduate from a Massachusetts school system with the appropriate MCAS scores or combined coursework. And you will see here that from 2023 to 2025, which we're currently in, there becomes a change for the graduates in 2026. And the primary change is the increase in the achievement scores that you will need to receive in order to graduate. We have students who do not achieve the first option, and this year, for example, that would achieve a 472 in ELA or a 486 in math. And those students, through additional coursework and through retaking MCAS, are able to graduate successfully. But you'll see that the state is considering raising those scores and those expectations around scores, so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this. The second change is that there are changes coming to the science MCAS, especially in 5th and 8th grade, to make them more performative based, and they're in a pilot year. And as I'm sure one of our school members could talk more about, there is also changes coming to social studies as a potential MCAS assessment, specifically in the area of civics. Both of those things are being through the pilot and I'm blanking on what the social studies considered is not a pilot anymore, but are going through the practice assessments now.
Right.
Okay, so what are our big takeaways? For the most part, our MCAS scores follow the statewide national trends, showing an upward trajectory towards recovery. That's something that we are happy about, but we should be really clear that just being at recovery isn't where we want to be. We want to be beyond our scores in 2019 and continue to work towards growth beyond 2019 scores. As we typically do, Walpole Public Schools does outperform the state averages, and you'll see here I said DART analysis is still needed, and like I said, in full disclosure, it has been done now, and we'll take a look at that to show how we compare to districts that are closer aligned with ours. In the 3 major buckets of ELA and math, you'll see some of the major things that we learned. Some of these have been things that we've struggled with in the last several years, and some of them are new. We know that writing is an area, response to text remains a challenge for many of our students in all grade levels that are assessed in MCAS. High need students in grade 10 did not reflect gains in SGP, which was concerning for us, specifically students with special education. So not only do we take a look at our intervention strategies, but also some of our special education strategies to ensure those students get the support in order to be successful. Math, as I noted, there were significant gains in 10th grade achievement, but there was also a surprising dip in our 6th grade achievement. That is an area where actually Walpole has thrived in 6th grade. There were not major changes made to the curriculum mapping or to pacing in that grade level. So we've done an analysis to determine what were the curriculum areas or standards that we typically have done well in that we didn't do well in last year. In grades 3 to 5, which was a critical year for us as we piloted and implemented in its first year our new math curriculum, we were pleased that we made gains in achievement And I will note that while we're not celebrating our sixth grade scores, one area that we put a lot of work in is standards rooted in geometry. So for the first time, grades 6 to 8 demonstrated improvement in the geometry standards, which is something that we've been working towards for quite a while. And as I spoke about already, in science, technology, and engineering, there was significant improvement in Physics 9 achievement scores. There was a significant drop in our 8th grade achievement scores, which I spoke to already, but we were pleased that there was not drops and actually some increase in our technology and engineering standards that included those questions. So how did we respond? I have a lot of bullet points here, and this is what I kind of spoke to in the beginning is when I did this presentation for the first time ever 5 years ago, there was probably a small group of people I would reach out to. We would have meetings with the leadership team about how we respond to MCAS, and oftentimes it was very late in the year. That has completely changed. There are about 20 people that contribute just to this presentation on how we're making improvements, and I feel confident that while I asked about 20 people to contribute, there's all of those people are working with teachers who are sharing what they're doing in their classrooms. And what I'm trying to say is that MCAS results are having impacts on what we do here as a district. We are being incredibly responsive, and some of that should be attributed to the state, who's tried to make these assessments more meaningful and have given us data quicker to be more responsive. We have, as a district, improved the way we respond. We collect, organize, and respond to data, and that we're able to compare it to the benchmark assessments that we give. So I do want to just say overarching, some of our practices aren't necessarily rooted in a standard, but some of them are rooted in the work that we're doing at the instructional leadership level. We make goals that are rooted in effective classroom observation strategies that provide teachers with feedback that impact instruction. And that is active and live in everything we do in our leadership work. We have spent way more time creating meaningful instructional teams at every school that's led by building administrators or curriculum leaders, that review multiple data points. Now, I've said this several times, but I want to say it again. We don't just look at MCAS. We try to look at multiple benchmark assessments, which we now have in this district to inform decisions we make about instruction and how we intervene and support students. We continue to support and invest in data resources to ensure that we consider all components of the student learning. So we look at vocal data, we look at frontline data, iReady, early literacy screening that we piloted 2 years earlier than most districts across the state. And we just recently added Elevation, which allows us to look more critically at our English language learners. Some of the bigger buckets that we look to is in terms of instructional adjustments. In grades 3 to 5, progression of responsive text in all elementary grades and the addition of expository essay unit on scope and sequence will be an emphasis for this year. In grades 6 to 8, we've made tremendous changes. In both ELA and social studies teachers have identified and started to implement consistent writing rubric, which is a major change from years past where a writing expectations could be different from classroom to classroom. Now we're talking about a consistent writing and rubric across 2 different content areas, across 2 different schools, across 3 different grades. This is progress for us. And ELA teachers are designing and implementing one common assessment per term to better assess and calibrate reading comprehension skills. So even if we're not purchasing a benchmarking assessment, like an iReady assessment or an iReady tool or a Bridges tool, we are doing it on our own organically to have more thoughtful conversations about student learning. And then finally, for ELA in grades 9 to 10, we are focused instruction review in freshman and sophomore classes that have students with disabilities in an area to grow in our instructional inclusive practices there. And then one area that we didn't do well in our analysis of the MCAS was actually standards rooted in poetry. So expectations that align skills, review, update assessment to ensure our students have the necessary practice to do better on that standard. I'll hesitate from reading every one of these bullet points, so I'll just highlight a couple that aren't repetitive. One is I should point out that we have a very active, and the work we're doing in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is crucial to our work for responding to all students, but especially our students who are marginalized and maybe not getting the support in the past. We work with our middle school science teachers this year to ensure consistent implementation of curriculum and pedagogical practices that meet all state standards. This is something that came across in the audit. and the evaluation that was done in last year, and this has had a change to ensure more consistent pacing across the board and the way that we evaluate that pacing. CER, claim, evidence, and reasoning, and our strategies in writing is not just something we do in English. It's not something we do in English, social studies, and in science, so that our students are hearing that consistently across multiple content areas. In science, one of the areas that we didn't do as strong is incorporating more graphical analysis in science classroom assessments and in class work. So graphing in the alignment to the work that's happening in math is happening now as we speak. And finally, I've mentioned some of these things before, but to wrap up my presentation, we are doing more at the high school to better identify at-risk students, to utilize Wednesday afternoon intervention block to provide targeted extra support with a focus on MCAS. Mr. Rodolfi has been in before and spoken about that, and that's now expanded and in place already. That's something that we started very late in the year last year. In another area that's a larger bucket is we continue our instructional coaching, professional development to improve targeted and real-time teacher growth and development. What we don't want to become is a data-rich district that doesn't make changes and provide support to teachers, because data is great and really, really helpful, but if we don't support our teachers to be successful in how to use this data to be better, we'll miss out on really fantastic opportunities. And finally, as I try to say at the end of each one of these presentations is, maintain the district's mission of educating all students to achieve success. And we should be reminded, especially with the students who are recognized tonight for cross-country, is there are so many different ways that we measure success across our district. It is not just strictly MCAS. This is just one tool and resource we use to consider how we can be better as a district, but we are still laser focused on making sure that we support all students to be well-rounded and well-supported so that they are prepared for life after Walpole. And with that, all that data and information, I'll take any questions or comments that you have.
Are there questions or thoughts for Dr. Hahn? Did you repeat that? No, I'm just kidding.
Some elements I might be able to. There's some elements I might be able to.
Just kidding.
My wife's heard the presentation a couple times.
I don't know whether you took a breath, but you did a great job. Very, very thorough.
Very comprehensive, yeah.
Questions? I would just say, I think the collective leadership team has their fingerprints all over this, and it's great that the two of you really enjoy being instructional leaders, and it shows. So I think for the rest of us, there may be questions after we dig a little deeper. I mean, you know, I like this stuff, but I don't even know what my questions are at this point.
Sure.
But I know that I feel happy that we're taking it as seriously, like you say, within the balance of, it's one piece of information, but you're working hard at it, and we can tell.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then, but thank you, Bill. I know that took a lot of effort, and I'm not trying to.
I will say that one of the things we've done is our sub-curriculum meetings, we've used that as an opportunity to drill down.
Right.
So I think this is a lot. Even presenting on it, I think to myself, how helpful is this? Is this too much? Is this a lot of data? So I appreciate the opportunity as we get to sub-curriculum, or if there's something that we have all the curriculum leaders now will come present from this point on. And if you have questions or things that you want them to elaborate on, I know they always appreciate guidance or questions. So, we intentionally kind of do it broad now and then narrow down as we move forward, so.
No, I think that's the way to go. I mean, I think that this is something that, it's sort of the meat and potatoes of what people expect out of our school system. So to completely gloss over it would be wrong also. But yeah, the curriculum subcommittee is a really helpful place.
Through just
Yes.
Just because it was so much work, I think I may actually want to pile on a little bit in praise, Dr. Hahn. I think the most impactful thing was the last few things you said about, and I think it deserves underscoring the fact that this is a tool, sometimes a flawed one.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate the deliberative and careful and serious way that the whole leadership team approaches this. But as I look at my notes, one of the best things I saw here was the focus on our seniors who need this to get their ticket punched and to get over the line. But the way you talk about the other rubrics we have used and the other iReady and things of that nature to try to get a really full sonar picture of where we go as a district. And I also noticed, obviously, because it's a line graph, it's the easiest thing to see. We talked so much about math, and we put so much focus on math. But we did so and I think maybe people who are a little bit, so we're so in the weeds on this, and you guys are so in the weeds on this, but people remember the MCAS as it rolled out, as people, I remember it as someone taking it early on, as this was the question that none of us got right, so we're all gonna memorize this question. But I think the nuance to this and the way you presented that is just so important to try to promulgate in the wider community about how we're talking about the concepts and the ways of thinking and helping students be critical, versatile thinkers through this type of work, and while still achieving within a rubric that they must. I think when you look at that math score of how we put a lot of focus onto math, and that bared fruit, especially in the growth period, I think is just commendable. And you can't do all things at once, but I think just the holistic and careful and serious way we look at this is something we should be really proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah, good work.
And it was under 50 pages.
Billy, you're almost as long as he was.
And on that note, we'll move on to the FY
Like a
'25
full-hour meeting, it's like we're not
budget
giving that.
timeline. Dr. Hahn, Dr. Goff.
So you have the budget timetable. The only change is just a reminder, we've got that workshop on the 30th. And then the public budget hearing is going to be on the 18th. I know we had like a meeting before that. Since we're having the workshop and then we're going, the budget hearing, there really isn't a need for that. If we need to get together, we always can in January. But just to bring your attention to the public budget hearing on the 18th, which would be, our goods and services and personnel. So, just a
Okay, the
reminder.
only other thing I would add to it is we should have November 28th, because we're meeting with the the Select Board, the Finance Committee, and town administrators to begin the budget process. And there are a lot of topics that'll get discussed that night, but one of them is the fact that our special ed budget is way over our original amounts. So we need to be ready to explain that. And the good news is that we were able, a couple of years ago, to create a reserve that's going to help us with this year. But FY '25 is going to be challenging for the school department. And so this meeting on the 28th is an important one because there's just concern in general about, how are we going to be able to maintain what we're doing and pay the extra costs that are going to come in special ed, and potentially try to do something at the high school. So all of something about the physical plant at the high school. So those are all the topics that are going to be on the agenda. And I know that Carrie was working with Dr. Goff and along with the chair of the select board and the FinCom to get that meeting together. But it's an important one, yeah.
And, just to reiterate with the special education, this is a statewide issue, not a Walpole issue. And a lot of our, colleagues across the state are experiencing the same. There's actually, I believe, 5, bills up that are about special education in terms of circuit breaker, transportation. So I'll give school committee a copy of those bills so you can take a look at them and contact our legislators.
Yep. Okay, so mark your calendars for November 28th.
And that's at Bird. It's going to be at Bird.
Oh, right,
And they'll do a tour beforehand.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Every couple of months, there are changes going on at that new building, which gets us to the next item. In old business, the middle school building project. Mr. Breen?
So no updates, it's on time and on budget still, so that's it.
Oh, by mistake, I skip the superintendent report.
okay, I don't
Didn't mean to. Go right ahead.
Okay. No, just briefly, we had a big weekend coming up. It's been great to attend some of the MIA playoffs. Our football team, as Favor mentioned, is going to be set to play against Milford at Bridgewater Raynham. That's tomorrow at 6. And that was a nail biter. I don't know if anybody saw it last
Seriously, yes.
week, but an absolute nail biter. So they never gave up. The field hockey Final Four playoff game was last night. That was a great win to see. That was a 4-2 over Franklin, and they had a nail biter last Friday. So
Yes.
I had a little bit of relief in the fourth near the end of the game. So that was great. The state championship field hockey game is going to be Saturday versus Andover again. So
Yes.
feel good about this one. I do. That's 9:30 in the morning at WPI, and then shooting over to the cross-country all-state championship at Saturday, too. I don't know how long it takes to get from one to the other. We'll see. So I'm really looking forward to supporting our teams and our athletes. I'm also excited about the upcoming Walpole High School musical Annie. That's scheduled for tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday, so I encourage everyone to attend, support our talented students. Since I'll be attending our games on Friday and Saturday, I plan to go on Sunday with Dr. Hahn. We have our ticket, so like I said, this is a big weekend coming up, so we can rest easy with Thanksgiving. Nancy, Kristen, and I had the opportunity to attend the MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committee, and the MASS, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Conference. It's really one of the largest annual gathering of educational leaders in the state of Massachusetts. It consists of just really diverse workshops and opportunities and create an in-depth discussion of just the critical educational issues that we have today with school committee members and superintendents really under one roof. And our very own Kristen Zyrek presented at a conference, and that focused on early literacy, and she really represented our district well, so thank you. So a pleasure to watch and listen, and some great feedback. Regarding scholarships, you all should have received an email from Mary for the scholarship, received the scholarship applications, so I believe we have a meeting scheduled for December 5th, it's a little earlier, at 6 o'clock, so have those spreadsheets ready to Mary, right? All right, I can't believe I'm saying this, but snow days. With winter approaching, I'd like to remind everyone about our snow day procedures. The superintendent of schools is, yes, responsible for the final decision to cancel school-based weather-related factors and information received that I receive, and also information that I receive from the Department of Public Works. So in the event of a cancellation or delayed openings, we'll communicate through various channels. It's a recorded phone message. You may not hear my voice, but it's recorded, so it's on the app, so that we can translate for all our families. Also on the Walpole Public School website, Mary gets it to the news stations as well. Please note, I always have to say this every year, I get emails about it, and it's fine, and it'll be the same answer, that DESE will not allow any remote learning days for snow days, and those have to be made up in June. Also a reminder, Thanksgiving is coming next week, so we have early release next Wednesday, no school Thursday and Friday, and I hope you all have a well-deserved break to spend time with family.
That's it. Perfect. Any questions or comments for Dr. Goff? I'm very sorry, I did not mean to skip over you.
That is quite all right.
Let's just hope the sun comes out on our teams this weekend. Little Annie reference?
Oh, look at that.
Hard knock life, you will.
Breen didn't like that one either.
All right, and I think you already said nothing new to report on the middle school.
On time, on budget, looking good.
Okay.
And they had a joint PAC meeting this week.
Oh, nice.
Middle schools, so, and our staff are meeting.
Yep, so we have, just a note, we have kind of an internal staff transition committee, which is now formally called the Middle School Unity Committee. And that's made up of 20 staff or over 20 staff from Bird and Johnson. And the 4 subcommittees of focus are student transition, staff transition, core values, and then communication are the 4 subcommittees of that group. And we'll be working primarily internally, but there'll be an opportunity for that staff to be, also surveying and getting feedback from outside stakeholders. So some of those groups might be in touch with parents and students for sure.
And we're still working on FF&E, we're finishing that up, starting, timelines for how to move, furniture and move into rooms. So even, we have the structure, there is a ton going on behind the scenes, and we'll continue to communicate.
Great.
I would just add that we're at 47% complete.
Wow.
The school.
It's amazing.
The engineers, I don't know what their data is, but it's
Yeah.
47%. 2 weeks ago, it was 40. So call it 3 or 4% a week, and definitely on schedule for.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's something to be proud of. Okay, so that gets us to the high school project. Kristen?
All right, we have a couple updates. We had a meeting today. Design is continuing. So the design development, as you remember, is part of previous approval, so that's something that's already been budgeted for. And we're looking to add a couple of things that have rolled in. HVAC, as we've talked about with Mr. Frisha, has rolled in. We're also looking at driveway extension in front of the high school. That was something that we had talked about and was part of capital a while ago, but we're looking at the building a little bit more holistically. As part of the design development, we should have estimates in February at that point, and given the budget scenario of what's happening, especially with Tri-County, we may need to look at what the budget looks like for the building and then sort of prioritize some of the things that we previously had approved. And as we mentioned, that'll be discussed in a couple weeks at our workshops. I also met with Tom Reeve to talk about a website. So we're gonna add a page probably in the next week or so, basically taking what Chair Denizio had shared at town meeting and kind of putting together an FAQ, so at least there's some information for the public to start to get questions answered about what's happening with high school. And that's it.
Great. Okay, that gets us to subcommittees. Did any subcommittees official meet? I know that Kristen and I went to the MASS workshop, and I shared the beginning of my notes with you guys this afternoon late about, some of the sessions that I attended. There were some really, really good ones, and if Bridget and Kristen want to add to that same document, we can just share it. But I learned some things about collective bargaining. Good news is I didn't feel the pressure because we're not, on the hot seat on that right now. I learned about book banning from people in Abington, and I knew that Medfield had had this experience. So, it's good to just know who to network with if and when a topic comes up. There was a big session on artificial intelligence. I learned a new word is hoover up. When you take a ton of data and you create and that's how ChatGPT works. I learned just a little bit, but I didn't know that hoover up means take millions of pieces of data and put it into a database. You can read my notes if you want more info. There's another interesting one on the MIAA and NEASC are working together to create the standards for a strong athletic department. And they're not going to require it in the way that NEASC requires things for high school accreditation, but they're highly, highly encouraging it. I was really interested in that. There was a session on middle school social studies that was well done. Bridget and I did that one together. There was a session on long-term planning and equity, and another one that I attended, which was more equity from the point of view of social emotional skills. So what's good is a lot of those people are posting the link to their slides. So even though you guys who haven't been to the conference, if there's something that you're interested in seeing, you'll be able to see it. So it was really very good.
It is helpful when they share their slides, because the one we went to on special education, I wanted those numbers.
Yep.
especially looking at transportation and circuit breakers, so.
Right,
they
there's a
did- they
lot
did
that might be
release those.
coming for special ed support in the bills coming up.
And Dr. Hunley had a great one on MCAS, of the changes that I know you know
Coming,
about.
yeah.
But in terms of the science was really interesting.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is, we are apparently required to give an update from our collaboratives a couple of times a year. So I have a bit of an update after the most recent tech board meeting. And I think it overlaps with what Dr. Goff was saying, because they've been very active about supporting legislation. And I'm going to send this to you guys also, but there's a couple of pieces of legislation that if we all get behind, it might be helpful. We can't take the lead on legislative action this year because we are one of the winners in last year's round of funding. On the other hand, we should be very active on the things that other communities are pushing for, or in this case, our collaborative. So one of the items is increasing circuit breaker, adjusting the threshold for eligibility, and establishing a commission to look at special ed in the long run. There's another one about support for collaboratives, which would modify state ethics law to allow employees of public school districts to take part-time, temporary, or stipended positions with the collaborative. I think it's a loophole that was never really intended. But, like if one of our teachers wants to work for the collaborative in the summertime, they're really not allowed to, well, maybe the summertime they could. They're looking at the fact that some of the resources that they benefit from come from our districts. And it's, apparently, they're trying to fix a law. And the last one that she has in here is Tech has done an awful lot to do data privacy. So, when we're using so many pieces of software right now, and it's really important to make sure that none of our students' data is accessible to the vendors that are providing this software. So a few years ago, a pilot program was started, and it has ballooned into something really big because Tech hired the lawyer and Tech hired one person to make the contracts for student data privacy. So there's some legislation related to that because there's a commercial entity that's trying to get into the business of competing, and the argument is you don't want to make money off of protecting students. It's just the right thing to do. So anyway, there's a bunch of bills that we should consider supporting, and I will send that along. Yeah.
They come out with a date yet for the legislative breakfast? I haven't
I
seen
didn't
that.
even
Okay.
ask
All
about
right.
that, but I will. I think what happened was they wanted to talk to whoever got elected as the Tri-County people.
Okay.
To coordinate with them at your Tri-County roundtable. That's the last I heard, but I know that we don't want to let that fall through the cracks, so I'll ask about that. Good question. Okay, anybody else with subcommittee-like reports? Okay, that gets us to citizens' comments. Unless you want to come in here, Patrick, and comment, we're good. That gets us to approval of warrants, budget transfers, donations, and minutes. So, does anybody have the
I
warrants?
have the warrants. I guess I'm the
Perfect.
junior person of the school committee. All right.
traditional,
Would
right?
like to make a motion to approve the payroll warrant number 2415 PS for the amount listed in your packet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kristen, a second by Mark. All those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500.
I'd like to make a motion for the following accounts payable warrants. 224-016, 224-017, 224-018, 224-019, for the amounts listed in your packet.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Kristen, a second by Jen. All those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500. The next item is approval of budget transfers, and they're all carefully listed here in our packet. So I would make a motion to approve the November 8th budget transfers for a total of $96,299.
Second.
Okay, any questions? If not, all those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500. That gets us to gifts and donations. Does somebody want to take that? I'll do it otherwise. Go ahead, Mark.
I'll take it.
Yep.
I don't know if I've ever done this.
Go for it.
This is great stuff.
Big night.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a donation from Bay State Textiles to Boyden School in the amount of $90, to OPR from Bay State Textiles in the amount of $635, and system-wide school gardens in the amount of $49.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500. And lastly, we have minutes. Somebody want to take those?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the open session school committee meeting minutes of October 26, 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bill, a second by Mark. All those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the October 26, 2023 executive session meeting minutes, but not to release them until the matter is resolved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bill, a second by Mark. All those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Mark, a second by Kristen. All those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.